So, but before we go, or before we start the practical, another thing I want you to know is syntax. Syntax are basically rules and regulation guiding a particular programming language. They are rules and regulation guiding a particular programming language. So now we are going to start with a markup language. We'll look at style sheets before we go into JavaScript properly. Okay, so let's delve into our computer system right away. Now, the first thing to do before you would begin coding is to create your code folder. Now, just follow the instruction. Click on new. Now, click on folder. Then you name the folder. Now, let's use first code. You can use any other thing you want. First code dot html. I would explain why we are doing this. Okay, it's saved on our desktop. Okay, so I explained how you can get Visual Studio Code, and I gave my reason. The reason why I recommend Visual Studio Code is, one, because it is user friendly, two, there is no technicalities, and three, it is one of the best IDE for beginners. And most of it all, it's absolutely free of charge. You are not paying a dime for Visual Studio Code, and with an addition of some plugins, you would get the maximum functionality of Visual Studio Code. Now let's delve into our Visual Studio Code. Now this is what our Visual Studio Code will look like if you succeeded in having this on your computer system. Congratulations, because you are on your way to write your first code. And I'm not saying it to get you excited, or I'm not just saying it to just for saying its sake. I'm saying it because you have succeeded in doing step one, which is setting up your Visual Studio Code, which is an IDE, an integrated development environment, a platform that makes it easy for programmers to write their code, test their code, and debug their code. Now, Visual Studio Code takes care of one, it takes care of writing of code, and secondly, it takes care of debugging of code. Now somebody will ask, what about to test our code? Now we will test our code using Google Chrome. If you don't have Google Chrome on your computer system, please try and install Google Chrome. You can go to Google and search, and just click on download Google Chrome, and you would do that. And Google Chrome is absolutely free of charge. So we are making use of Visual Studio Code and Google Chrome. Now, as we progress in this, as we progress in programming, we would get to see a whole lot of features that we would also want to add to our IDE. Some are free, some are premium, which is paid. But for now, we are starting with HTML, which is basically not a programming language, but a markup language that forms the framework of a website, that forms the building block of all websites, HTML. So now we will start by clicking on File and then select Open Folder. We would first start with our folder, and you remember we saved the folder on our desktop, so we search on the folder. Okay, now this is the folder. Now you click on select folder. I hope you are following. I hope you are following up to this stage. Please, if you are not, you can go back to the previous step and then follow us up until where we are now. There is no rush in learning, but I would be really, really glad. I would be really, really excited if if you are following me and if you are doing it correctly. If you're not doing it correctly, you go back to the step you've missed and then go through it. Now, this file is trusted because we created the file ourselves. So, but if you are importing code, you will have to make sure that it is trusted before you go ahead. So I trust this file, so enable me. So having done that, the next step is to create a new file. So let's see it this way. Okay, let's see it this way. The first thing we did, we created a folder. The second, we opened a folder on Visual Studio Code, and the third now is we'll create a new file. You could either do it this way or you do it from here. You see new file, you just click on new file and then you write the name of your file. It should be first code dot html. Once you click on enter, you will be taken to your development environment. Okay, now here we go. Once you are up to here and you have this, another congratulations, because you are doing really, really well. Now there are things I would show you before we go to the next phase, because this is a step. This is just to enable you write your first line of code and then usher you into the world of coding. I know most of you are really, really excited. Most are over the moon because they are finally fulfilling their dream of becoming a programmer. Now, but slow it down a little bit, because it takes months, it takes in some cases years of practice, learning, relearning, unlearning to become a programmer, especially when it has to do with web development, which, as I explained, we will be making use of HTML, CSS. They are not programming language. They are a markup language and a style sheet, and then JavaScript. As we go on, we look at jQuery, we look at Bootstrap, we look at, before we delve into full stack web development. But for now, this is what we'll be focusing on to usher you in, to usher you in and to enable you write your first line of code. I just saying all this analogy to make those who are not up to this up till this step to hurry up or probably rewatch the video and then join us. So now let's go. I'll show you basically the structure of an HTML code, and then we'll run our code and then we call it a day. But it's a continuous process. It's a continuous process. Learning is a continuous process. So why I love Visual Studio Code is because it gives you option even when you are not sure of. That's why most coding syntax, I don't normally memorize codes. I'm really guilty of that. I don't normally memorize code because Visual Studio helps me to remember even when I've forgotten the code. Now let's go. Now the first thing first is to identify or is to know the dot type you are working with, which would simply is HTML. So once you click on HTML, there are recommendations, but advisably click on HTML5. Now this is why I love Visual Studio, because it helps me. Okay, we would not be needing this. So now this is a structure of an HTML document. I would explain it, then we write our first code, and then test our code, so that you will see how to test code and celebrate your first line of code. That's one thing. So doc type simply means that this document is an HTML document. Now that is simply the job of doc type. Now this is basically how a website structure looks like on using HTML. That's another thing. So now this is HTML. It's simply telling us that what we are doing will be in English language. You can change this to Chinese, you can change this to Japanese, you can change this to whatever. Now we have the head section, like the title of your website, the menu of your website, they are all in head section. Now the body contains the write-ups, images, whatsoever that will be on your website. They would all be in the body section, and then it will close with another HTML. I hope I've very dot type indicates that this is an HTML document. HTML language simply means it should be in English. The head section contains the menu, the title, and the body contains the images, write-up, content of your website, and then it will be closed with HTML. So now, advice, you can change this to whatsoever. You can change this, so I'll prefer to just say first code so that I will remember. First code, and then inside we are going to say hello world. This is our first code line of code, hello. And once you make any changes, or once you write down any code, you are to save the document immediately. So it means if you write a line of code now, you would save the document. If you write a line of code another time, you would save the document. Now you could either save in the normal way, or you just click on Ctrl S. It is saved. So let's test our code to see if it's actually working. And to test your code, the best way is Google Chrome. I would show you. To do that, we'll click on our folder. We'll click on our folder and then open with Firefox. We click on our folder and then open with Firefox. Now that is how to test our code. Well, usually okay, so we've firstly tested our code, hello world. Now there are things I would show you before we wrap it for today's class. So whenever we make any change here, we would refresh this page to see to test our code. Now let's say I change this now to hello. Ctrl S, then you either click on reload this page or F5 if you are using a Microsoft. If you are using a Windows computer, I don't know of MacBook or Apple, I really don't know, but I am familiar with using Microsoft, which is the most popular operating system for computers. So you to see the change we made from our VS Code, you just click here. So you can see it's showing hello. So another thing I would like you to know in HTML is H1 to H7. How does it work? Click on H1. You could either click on H1 or you just then H1. So if I enter hello world, we would notice a slight change. Control F. Okay, so now let's see what will happen. Remember, we did it instead of just writing hello world. We want to know more about H1, and I will tell you another place you can learn more syntax about you. Okay, coding is basically 70 is basically 30% of what you learn and then 70% of what you Google. So wherever you find challenge or whatsoever, the best way to get out of the issue is either to Google about it or to check Stack Overflow or to check on YouTube. Now that's the best way to learn. I always tell my students Stack Overflow, Google and YouTube. So we click on Control S and then run our code. Remember, reload or F5. Now as you can see, the hello world is a bit bold. That is the job of H1. That is the job of H1. Now let's see H2. Okay, my name is Zobmi, which is actually not my name. So Control S and then we run our code, which is F5. As you can see, it's getting smaller. If we use H3, okay, subscribe, Control S, F5, you see it's getting small. This will go on and on till the last one is H6 is the last one. H6 is the last one. H6. So let's just use H6 instead of wasting our time. So coding. Then we go. Now let's see how small it will be. F5. You see, it's very small. Now this is the least. This is the least font you would see. Okay, so there are other things you would still want to use. There are still other things like button. Okay, let's see button. Now button is my name. Okay, button is click. Control S. Excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. So that is it. We are still dealing with HTML. So as we go on, we would learn more about HTML. Join also CSS and so for today, congratulations, you were able to write your first line of code. You were able to install an IDE that will enable you write your code, debug your code, and also test your code using Google Chrome. So that's where we'll call it a day for today. I hope you were able to enjoy this class. I hope you were able to set up your development environment. If you've not, please, you can go back and rewatch the video and you would be able to. So I'm going to close this. I'll also close this. So thank you for sticking around with us. So to get more value, we have paid and well explained detailed courses on coding from beginners down to scratch. Now this is just an introduction aspect. We won't be able to cover some part of our classes, so you can always contact us to get the complete video course on coding. The courses are affordable and they are pocket friendly. Now it's well explained, trust me, it's well explained. So for now, stay safe, stay strong. My name is Obara Miracle, and if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, because I make sure that I bring value at each particular time. Now these videos are well researched videos, well explained, and we make it easy for everyone to understand. Subscribe. Thank you.